Yo, this is Bench Gamer here. So recently there has been a lot of talk about this interview between Gamespot and Genshin Impact's developers over at Hoyoverse. This interview was done over through email, so a lot of the answers that the developers gave aren't really off the cuff. They're not really on the spot. They're very much pruned and very, very sterile. But there are some things we can inference from their answers. Even though they don't give like direct answers, they pretty much confirm all of the worst fears that the long-term Genshin Impact players, hardcore Genshin Impact players, content creators, whatever you want to call them, basically anybody who has finished Spiral Abyss and want more difficult content, this probably applies to you. So what this interview is essentially saying on the part of Genshin Impact's developers is that there will never be any harder content than Spiral Abyss, which is not anything new that we don't know about already. If you like listen to or read about what Hoyoverse's CEO, Dawe, or any of their employees have ever said, the very few things they have ever said, because Hoyoverse is run kind of like Disney. They're really tight on what the company actually says themselves, although they're not tight on leaks. They just it's just all over the place for that. I'm pretty sure they actually leak things on purpose at this point, but sometimes the amount of leaks has me questioning that a tiny bit. But essentially, they don't really say anything. I've never really heard any of the employees or CEOs say anything that weren't in a very pruned or very curated video, except for this. There is one video by MiHoYo's CEO all the way back like 10 years ago, back in 2011, which I encourage everybody watch because it explains all of the things that they are trying to do with their games and explains why ultimately Genshin Impact is a very casual, very new player friendly game and why it will stay that way for the duration of its entire existence. And I think for most of us, that has always been at the back of our heads. This acknowledgement, this acceptance that Genshin Impact will be a casual game. But it's one thing to inference it from all of these little things that the CEO or the employees have said, versus them just saying it in a much more blatant way. So let's just read some of the stuff that they have said. So first question is GameSpot asking if the shortened duration of the patches will continue on into the future. And Genshin Impact's developers give a very non-committal non-answer. They're basically just saying, starting from version 3.0 to the end of version 3.2, the length of each update will be shortened to 5 weeks. But a shorter update cycle will not influence the quality of gameplay and content. Please stay tuned. So they're not really saying anything. What I'm thinking is that they're just trying to make up for lost time that they lost during the COVID shutdowns in Shanghai. So what they're saying is that no, we're not doing this forever. We're not going to have 5 week patch cycles for the remainder of Genshin Impact's lifespan. It's just for version 3.0 to version 3.2, and after that, um, it's probably going to go back to 6 weeks. And a lot of the things that they have done point to this being the case because they actually shortened the battle pass XP that you have to get for each level. They shortened it from 1,000 to 900, which doesn't make a lot of sense when you like try to look at it from like a quality of life perspective, because 900 is obviously not as intuitive as 1,000, and they didn't really shorten what's it called, the number of levels you have to get. So it just makes a lot more sense to me that they would eventually readjust it to 1,000 XP points that you have to get for each level in the future, rather than just making the battle pass permanently 900 XP points for each level for 50 levels. So that's just what I'm thinking. They don't really come out and say it. It's a very non-answer. This is whatever. So second question is about Spiral Abyss and whether or not there will be any plans to release new permanent endgame content in the same vein as the Spiral Abyss. And this is where a lot of people, a lot of content creators and hardcore Genshin Impact players kind of just like dip their heads and kind of cried to themselves on the inside and kind of cringed a bit. So Genshin Impact's developers say the Spiral Abyss is one of the most effective ways for players to test out their party composition and combat strength. If we design another type of permanent endgame that is similar to the Spiral Abyss, it might end up creating excessive anxiety for our players. Not everyone is interested in Muskreef. One, I didn't even realize that Muskreef was where the Spiral Abyss was located. I literally never looked at the name. So that's interesting. But for most of you, this is what they're saying is essentially that they are never going to create another Spiral Abyss. There is never going to be any like further levels on top of Spiral Abyss after floor 12. And they continue on to say, just like the Genius Invocation TCG, that is the trading card game that they are releasing in 3.2. Wait, is it actually 3.2? I thought it was 3.3. Okay, so that we unveiled in for version 3.2. No, they didn't. They unveiled it in the version special program for 3.1. Oh my god, is this actually wrong? What the fuck? Am I imagining things? We're on 3.1, right? What the okay, so they don't even get it right themselves. We are also working on designing more interesting gameplay in the future. As an open world game, Genshin Impact has a natural compatibility with various types of gameplay, which gives us confidence in the long-term operation. So for most of us, that means like scuffed Mario, scuffed trading card game, scuffed, I don't know, Sonic the Hedgehog. Maybe they'll give us like a mount or something in the future. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But what they're essentially saying is that there is never going to be another Spiral Abyss. And that's why you have all of these like content creators saying this makes me so fucking sad. Mao, Mtash, sad. Braxophone. Now Braxophone's comment is a bit more interesting because he actually does back this up with back up his sadness, but also he backs up what the Genshin Impact developers are saying, which is that people do get upset by the fact that there are more difficult content that they cannot do. And I personally experienced a tiny bit of this when I first started out playing Genshin Impact because obviously I could not complete all of the events. Not all of the events were completable for a new player, especially those events where you needed to like cooperate with somebody else and then do like a combined boss. There was one event where you had to fight multiple bosses in one level, and I literally could not do that. And I realized that I had to group up with somebody else to do it, and even then I could not do it. So I literally just abandoned the event, and it did make me kind of sad. But now that I'm at the end of the game, I do think the amount of sadness and like grief that I felt when I realized I couldn't do that event versus how much like sadness I'm feeling right now for the lack of endgame content isn't comparable. It didn't really matter to me at that time because I could do so much else other than do the events. It didn't matter to me that I couldn't do the event, and I think it's really wrongheaded for Hoyoverse's developers to think this way. But on the other hand, you have like Braxavone pointing out that I made 2 videos detailing new endgame content options for Genshin a long time ago, and the comments basically confirm what this article is saying, which is that people do get super upset about this stuff. Many players are so put off by the idea of hard content existing in the same game that they're playing that they will actively advocate against new things being added to the game. It makes me so really sad. The idea of someone wanting to make other people's experiences worse because they don't want to simply have the option to put in more work is beyond bizarre to me. But I suppose I also understand from a CN standpoint if game time is limited, which of course in China, they do have like a 20. I think you can only play like 20 minutes per day, and then on Fridays or Saturdays or like Sundays you can play for 1 to 2 hours. But this isn't restricted to CN only as well, because here Raxapone says, one time I talked about more optional co-op as one other endgame option, deleted lots of comments telling me to kill myself. But here are a few of anti-phone ones I dug up. I don't care if you're for or against raid content. I'm just showing cases to back up what this article is saying. So here are just like some of the comments. Yeah, no, hopefully raids never become a thing in Genshin. Holy shit, quit trying to make Genshin a goddamn MMO. Genshin doesn't need fucking raids or a focus on multiplayer. Go play a fucking MMO if you want an MMO. Oh my fucking god, yet another video with this type of content. Raids and shit like that don't belong in Genshin type games. Think about different content, mate. Unsubbed. So you have these really negative, really toxic comments, and they're not even rare. Like, I've read some of the comments that people have said on Genshin Impact videos on Bilibili, and yeah, this is a super common thing. And you have to realize the vast majority of players for Genshin Impact are casual players. They just do, they do their dailies, they explore the world, and then they're off. They don't really do Spiral Abyss. And that's completely fine. That's how I play the game until I finish Spiral Abyss. And what I'm thinking now is that I will probably restart my Genshin Impact account, not abandon my current one, because I've spent so much money on this game. It's just sunk cost fallacy at this point. Also, I just really like having a lot of characters. But what I will probably do is that after I finish the Archon quest for each region starting from Sumeru, I will probably restart my Genshin account fresh and play the game over again because I still really enjoy the game. And there are a lot of things that I probably have forgotten about. And I just want to get a fresh taste of what it's like to play Genshin again and maybe just see if it's still fun in 2022, 2 years after the games come out. So after 3.2, I will likely just make a new account with my name Bench Gamer now for my YouTube channel. And then I will probably stream it, playing the game over again. And we'll see whether or not I enjoy it or not. But I think I probably will. But that's my plan going forward. I don't really see a point in trying to treat my current account as something that is like, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but the amount of investment I have in Genshin Impact, as I get stronger, there's like an inverse correlation. The stronger I get in terms of my power level, the less I care about the content in Genshin Impact. And I really don't like that. So starting over is just another way for me to keep this game fun for me. And I do want to continue experiencing the content. I do want to keep enjoying Genshin Impact. It's just that there are certain things that I have to do now, just like Nuzlocke for Pokemon, that ultimately I am going to have to find new ways to have fun in Genshin Impact. And there are some other things that this interview has said that aren't really as important, like Genshin Impact is going into year 2 with an ever-expanding roster. Some older characters might get left behind as power creep settles in and newer characters become much stronger choices. And this is an even thing, because most of the newer characters are not stronger. There are very few characters coming out that are stronger than current ones. Like, even if Nahida, or not Raiden Shogun, but the God of Wisdom, Ruka Devata, whatever you want to call her, even if she comes out in 3.2 and she turns out to be cracked, she's not going to make other sumo characters that go with her more cracked than, Raiden Shogun. Like, why would you want Sino, or I don't know, what's her name, Nilu? Why would you pair those characters up with Nahida versus Raiden Shogun or Fischl or I don't know, Kokomi? There's very little to no power creep in this game. I think the only legitimate times where there is actual power creep in terms of stronger characters are the Archons. I don't think any of the other characters, for the most part, are going to ever power creep current characters. And that just fits into Hoyoverse's design philosophy for Genshin Impact. There is horizontal progression, never vertical progression. And that's what they essentially say in terms of their answer. If a character is only assessed by a single dimension of numerical strength, power creep would indeed be an issue. However, in Genshin Impact, the rules of gameplay are more impactful than how strong a character is, which is bullshit. Because what they're essentially saying is that you're supposed to care about a character based on her non-gameplay elements. Because even though they say the rules of gameplay are more impactful than how strong a character is, that doesn't mean anything. It just means that, yeah, we're going to create new ways to play characters. We're going to create new ways to have different team compositions, but they're not going to be any more powerful than the current ones. They're not going to be more powerful than Xingqiu. They're not going to be more powerful than Bennett, or actually Bennett actually has fallen off a tiny bit because there are just more ways to buff certain characters now, but he's still, for the most part, very, very global in terms of his usage. So that's just more confirmation of what we already know. Horizontal progression, never vertical progression. Therefore, new battlegrounds, new challenge levels, or even new team builds all have potential to bring new life to existing content. Yeah, exactly what I said. Introduction of Dendro has created plenty of new ways to cause elemental reactions, but some elements have been left out. Has there been any discussion regarding the addition of new reactions for existing elements? For example, in the future, could there be a new Geo and Dendro reaction? We have no such plans for the time being. Now, this is something I have already come to the conclusion of. Hoyoverse very much likes to release content in big chunks and then kind of just abandon those chunks. Like, if a content is out, they're not going to change it. For example, I complain about Yai, but they didn't actually buff her directly. They didn't make her teleports, give her teleports more utility. They didn't give her teleports invincible frames. What they did was they buffed the movement of special movement characters in general. but not specific characters. So once a character is out, once a certain piece of content is out in Genshin Impact, with the exceptions of like I don't know John Lee, and that was like because he's the Liu Archon, right? He's like the embodiment of China, so he has to be at least pretty good, and that's why they buffed him. But aside from John Lee, there's a rule that they follow, which is that they never buff characters. They never buff pieces of content after they are already out. And I think this also applies to Dendro. And what they were saying is that with the release of the Dendro element, the 7-element system has become somewhat complex. Again, it has to be accessible for new players. For us, there are other ways to increase the fun for players rather than simply increasing the complexity of the game's rules. So with regards to the 7-element system that we have right now, not including like the light element or dark element or whatever void element that they are going to release in the future, it's complete. These are all the reactions we are ever going to get for these 7 elements in terms of their reaction to each other, not including light, dark, or void, or any other element that they might add in the future that aren't directly part of the core 7-element system. With easy and open rules, given some time, players will come to discover their own ways of developing builds. That is the fun of this game. The balancing of all gameplay rules is part of the team's long-term design focus. Plus, the team's experience and learning from player feedback in the long run are all important to maintain that focus. So again, just a non-answer. The world of Teyvat continues to expand, giving players so many more challenges to complete daily domains, bosses, ley lines. Is there a chance we can see a cap increase for original resin? I don't know why they even asked this. Of course, they're not going to increase original resin. What the fuck? Just a complete waste of a question. Or a quicker regeneration rate to allow players to take on more of these challenges each day. So you can guess what answer Hoyoverse gave. I'm just gonna skip that. It's just why would they even ask that? So new players may have been a bit lost when starting the Summertime Odyssey event because they missed Fischl and Mono's first introductions. This also happened when Scaramouche showed up in Inazuma's Archon Quest after appearing in the limited times Monshot event. Is the team considering adding a way for new players to see or replay old story-related content and cutscenes that only existed in past limited time events? Now, this is the one and only interesting answer I think Hoyoverse gave us a bit of hope that we might actually be able to experience older events currently for new players. And this also makes me feel like it gives me more motivation to replay the game again because I've already experienced all of the events, right? So if I just start over, maybe I can experience all of these events without all my overpowered gear, without all of my overpowered artifacts and overpowered characters, whether it's like C3 or, just all my good artifacts. And I actually want to do this again. I think it would actually increase my enjoyment. So, okay, let's just get to what they're saying. We're aware of this issue and are looking into solutions for it. Great. They know there's a problem, and this is something they are willing to look into. On one hand, stories from limited time events shall never become barriers to understanding and playing Archon Quest. This is bullshit. Because we know that there are events that you can do that actually change the dialogue options for Archon Quest. There is literally a time-gated experience difference between new players and old players. Older players get different dialogue options in their Archon Quest. Like if you did the Star event, where Scaramouche was present back in 1.1, I think, you literally get a different dialogue option in Inazuma when you meet Scaramouche. That is the thing, if you didn't know. If you did not do that event, you do not have the same, you have a very slightly different Archon Quest experience than older players. So they're bullshitting. On the other hand, we're also working on beginner tutorial adjustments, client capacity optimization. Client capacity optimization is the most important thing because this is probably the biggest reason why they haven't included all of the events that they have done as permanent content. And I believe this is something that Arknights has already done. You can actually replay older events now in Arknights. Correct me if I'm wrong because I haven't played that game for like 1.5 years now. Intelligent management of past content. Again, they're looking into making past content playable and other optimizations. And as our technology and capacity grows, we hope to have useful solutions that players welcome. Okay, so maybe not only are they going to make past events playable, maybe they are just going to optimize the game in general so that we have um, further render distance. Please give us an option for render distance. Give us an option for more detailed textures. Give us an option to have like this game not stutter, please. So the last answer does give me a tiny bit of hope that they are looking into ways to fix these things. But as for like for hardcore content, you already know what the answer to it. They're just making it all the more obvious here, and I have accepted that. If you're still looking into like some of the things that MiHoYo has said that that just say this thing but in more words, then I encourage you to watch this video called EN Sub, Wei and MiHoYo back in 2011. This interview that Dawei did, who is currently the CEO of MiHoYo, that did for MiHoYo 10, 11, 12 years ago at this, I don't know what this is, 新兴创业党, I don't know how to translate that, but it's basically like a competition or something for new businesses. And he outlines exactly what they're selling. And they're not selling power levels, there's not, although you can buy that in Genshin Impact. They're selling virtual idols. That is the primary product of MiHoYo's products. It's just that these idols are in digital form rather than in real life form that we have had for so long with like Twitch streamers, with like actual idols in Japan, with like K-pop idols, K-pop stars, whatever you want to call them. They're selling those things to us in digital form. And that's where I think a lot of the confusion might be for some of the new players who have just recently reached that limit of enjoyment when it comes to hard content. Because they're asking, why aren't we getting more? And that's exactly it. This isn't what MiHoYo is trying to sell us. Anyways, that's pretty much all I wanted to say for this interview. It's so weird that people are talking about this now because I guess it's just one thing to inference everything from what what MiHoYo has said without them directly saying it. And they don't even directly say it here. This is, again, a very curated Disney-esque response. But it's just a bit more blatant, I guess. Anyways, this is Bench Gamer signing out. See you guys later.